Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Gratitude Speaks. I am Marty Marr, the man of many titles, and here at Gratitude Speaks, we care and we share with others our experience with communal living and using gratitude as a tool for happiness. I am very excited today to have my best friend and co-founder of Gratitude Foundation on with us today, Petros Colla. We are very grateful to have your time, Petros, today to talk a little bit. Obviously, this is important for Gratitude Foundation to have you on today to get some insights on, your inspiration. But before we get there, I'd like to just rewind and kind of paint the picture for us of how you even ended up in communal living to begin with, and maybe tell us some of your story.
Sure. My pleasure, Uncle Marty. So the idea for me came based off the experience in living with you, living with Zach, living with Jared, very early in recovery. You know what we experienced on Jacob's Ladder, and it was what it did for my recovery then, um, and just wanting to have other individuals, if they choose to, experience what we've experienced, right? I know for myself, I know for you, we went from friendship to brotherhood based off that living experience. We were both so brand new. Do you remember, man? We were so both brand new in early recovery. Gosh. And it was had a profound impact. I just made a decision before moving in with you. I remember coming around to meetings. I subscribed to an anonymous 12-step fellowship. That's my path way of recovery. And one of the things that I would often hear in there in the beginning, because when I first came around, this fellowship gave me hope, and then it began to irritate me when I used to hear fully self supporting, fully self supporting. And it dawned on me the truth is, in 14 years, I hadn't paid a bill. And that's when my journey began. I remember living with someone who's still to this day a beautiful person, godsend, right? Don't know where I would be if it wasn't for her, or if I'd still be alive if it wasn't for God placing this person in my life. And I remember reading some literature, man, and it talked about two types of spiritual beings: a spiritual tourist and a spiritual explorer, and how a spiritual tourist will is okay with everything in their recovery process, but how a spiritual explorer will continue to step out in faith during the recovery process. So to back it up a little bit, fully self-supporting, I was digesting that for months, and part of my prayer life was, teach me how to be fully self-supporting. I just don't want to use anymore. And it's been my experience, man. I had a conversation with someone. I told them, listen, because I was done lying. I was done lying to myself. One of the things that we're taught, I'll keep it on myself, that I was taught is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And I had to learn how to be honest with myself first. And even with 2.5 years clean, I just felt like I was lying to the other person. I was lying to myself. And hands down, one of the most uncomfortable things for me to do in my recovery process is tell the person that, I wasn't in love with them the way that they are with me. I was more in love with the comfort they provided me. And I vividly, to this day, with over 10 years clean, right? I vividly remember packing up my bags and stepping out in faith, man. I've been homeless clean. I had what, $35 in the bank, a couple of trash bags, and I remember suffering for a little while on a couch, and then eventually called you, and you're like, "Yeah, come on down," right? And what I experienced, it was the unscripted experiences, the things that you and I, the things that Zach, the things that Jared didn't script, the conversations that we had. because like for a lot of us, active addiction in the end, we became isolators, definitely from society, from anything healthy in society. And with that being said, in order to get to that point of isolation in my active addiction, I made conscious decisions to surrender certain abilities. And one of those abilities was how to have healthy conversations, how to tell people how I was feeling. I vividly remember, you and I were just getting to know each other on a different level down there, man. Like one on one, me and you on the couch and the cats in the living room, and explaining to you my day and how I felt. And then listening to you. And the part that I've never told you is, wow, he articulates that pretty well, right? Um, I'd like to be able to do that someday. I don't know, man. It was the beginning of me getting some power back. And what I mean by that is my ability to tell people, because as you well know, that one of the things that has kept me clean for over 10 years is I have a small, trusted, intimate group of people that I'm very transparent with, that I tell them how I feel. And it was your comfort. It was the love, man. It was the love that I it was the love in that living room, the healing, the power in that living room, in that house, that helped me get back my power. And telling you the truth, this is how I'm feeling: happy, mad, glad, sad, man. So I just wanted, if we, you and I, and I remember you talking back then about this idea, and if we could provide, if we could be used, right? Because all you and I are trusted servants. If you and I could be used, what do we need to do to place ourselves in a position of trusted servitude, to be used to create an environment, or like what you and I experience?
That's beautiful. And you said you like the way that I articulate something, and I don't know that I was articulating anything very well back then, other than my own insanity. But
And
um,
still articulation. And you remember, we used to laugh a lot.
yeah,
We used to laugh a lot, man. I remember. I just remember some times of just stupid laughter, man. You know.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Learning how to have fun was important. And while you were talking too, like I just was picturing all the things that I would have thought were important at the time, that just really didn't, they weren't really what mattered, like
Mm.
you talked about the couch, and I can remember getting that used couch and moving it into the house, and thinking about how nice that house looks now. That house is now a women's house, for women and children, and how nice it looks now. But it was not that nice when we were in there, and it wasn't what mattered, right? It was just that we were together. It was that, um, for whatever reason, you felt like somebody who was an old friend
Mm.
right from the day I met you. And even though in my past I would have run from that, somehow I just kept trying to do things differently. That's what they told me: do things differently, make different mistakes. And so I tried to follow that feeling, and be close with somebody who felt like I should be close with. I don't know how else to put that. And that was our process, right? Just being there, and experiencing life, and just trying recovery together, was really our process. And I think maybe, if I can ask you to explain too, um, so with our channel, also reaching guys that maybe don't have experience like we do yet in recovery based living, or communal living, the difference between fully self-supporting and living together, right? Because we lived in a house, we shared some resources. How do you see that as still being fully self-supporting?
That's a great question. Great question. I Even though you and I lived together, and Jared and Zach were there, and we shared things, I had to learn simple things in the beginning. Pardon me. How to manage money for gas, how to manage money for, when I say fully self-supporting, I came to a point in my life where I was not comfortable anymore of being taken care of financially, right? A person that is in active addiction or is actively participating in substance use disorder, um, I found that I had no value for money. I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't care about money, all those characteristics. So there were things that I depended on you and those other gentlemen for: spiritual well-being, right? Emotional care, um, mental support, right? However, I felt that there were certain responsibilities that were mine. So I believe, and that's some of the things that we try to teach. But I'll say this: the more that I grow in my recovery experience, I'm 54 now, I understand that I try not to get in the way as much. I, we have loving hearts. We can see it coming before it actually takes place, talking about the relapse, the behaviors that lead up to that. And it's been my propensity the last 9.5, 9.75 years to get in the way of that, to soften that fall for someone. And it's difficult for me to say this and to accept it, but that is part of me getting in the way of somebody learning how to be fully self-supporting. You know, Here's what kept me clean for 10 years. Me participated in the we, because it is, you say communal living. I have a community of people that I may not live with physically, but I walk this recovery process with every day, right? You, Kabir, my sponsor, um, Chris, Rob, a few other people, man. These are some of the things that we try to promote or plant that seed within the communal living. Are there always going to be challenges and obstacles? Of course, because for example, I'm at a place where I have over 10 years recovery experience and I became OCD. I know I'm clean to the far extreme. So I've had to learn that, there are people within our recovery homes that are starting over, and I have to allow them. You said it, right? Make new mistakes. Are there always going to be dishes in the sink? Yeah. Is there always going to be? Can you always find dust somewhere? Of course. Are they going to be long? Is there someone going to leave their laundry in a washer and dryer? Yeah, man, they are. But that character defect of mine comes from me being raised to be perfect, my perfectionism that I'm working on, right? I don't say that to blame anyone. I come from good people. I've had intimate talks with both of my parents. They said, "Hey, we kind of did it wrong, man. We expected you and your sister to be perfect." So communal living to me has a lot of advantages. But I'll say this, like when we interview anyone for our housing, we're not a fit for everyone. And I'll tell anyone, let me give you the information so you can make an informed decision. We're no longer trying to fit square holes in a round peg in a square hole, right? Because what you and I have learned, what's most important is protecting the community in the house that we have currently. I'm not talking about we're better than or we're less than anyone or you and I are here playing God. But part of being a trusted servant is we do have a responsibility, Martin. It, it is what it is, brother. We're just not a fit for everyone. But community living, and the goal for us has always been this, right? And I know that we have a grander idea, something we'd like to get some acreage. We'd like to eventually open and operate what you and I have been talking about as far as our idea of a inpatient treatment setting where it's a lot more holistic, a lot more hands-on, teaching people how to grow food, becoming fully self-supporting in that area, right? That will come in time, God willing, if God sees fit, if that's his vision for you and I. Um, Community, the goal has always been is to bring these men or whoever God brings to us, right, into our care, and if they can stay alive, let's talk about that because that's uncomfortable, right? If they can stay alive long enough, Martin, that God will use us to teach them how to become fully self-supporting, how to become productive members of society. And I think some of the challenges that you and I run into is you and I have our recovery ideology. I think we do a very good job of giving the men the freedom to find their niche or find their pathway of recovery without getting too involved. There are some things that you and I um, don't think are healthy for the house, but that's what comes with the responsibility that you and I have, right? So the idea has always been is have men watch them start like you and I did, because the outside when you and I started, we may have washed our hair, brushed our teeth, wearing clean clothes. The outside appearance may have been healthy, but it's taken some time for that inner reconstruction. And what I mean by that, substance use disorder, co-occurring mental health, addressing those and getting help for those, and right, and just like you taught me, open your heart, feel it all, and put one foot in front of the other. So I think also fully self-supporting can be defined differently by different people, right? The goal is this: becoming a productive member of society. And if the individual in our care can stay alive long enough, because we've seen it, Martin, it's uncomfortable to talk about, but we've had people that you and I love. Hey, I'm doing this, I'm moving back. Well, you're probably not ready for that. And then unfortunately, they leave our care, and they make a decision that ultimately costs them their lives.
Yeah, great insights too, man. I really appreciate that talk right there. That was really powerful. I think too, if we define addiction as a force of isolation, then recovery is also, becoming part of a community.
And
And
that's and that's the challenge, right, Marty? Come on, listen. You and I have talked. I know. Listen, the last 10 years of 28 active addiction. How am I stuck in this bathroom all by myself? I have this entire house to myself. You've been very open about, same how you isolated for years. So what happened to you and I? We lost our social skills. All right, let me stop lying. We made decisions and gave away some of our power, the ability to socialize, the ability to have healthy. So I believe communal living can be therapeutic in that way. Is it a challenge when you get five grown men living in a house? Yeah. 11 grown men living in a house? Of course, it's a challenge, right? There are going to be some uncomfortable times, but hey, man, what has dad been telling me for 54 years? They call that life, son.
yeah, and most of the skills that I learned are still, you know, applied in my daily life today.
Of
And,
course.
and I think something too, I wish that it was possible to just teach people directly, some of these skills. And sometimes I try to figure out ways to implant ideas and ways of talking about ideas that most people don't talk about. Because some of the most important things that we did was actually leave relationships and stay in the house with each other, with the guys, and pull closer to a network of men that were recovering, as opposed to running back to the comfort of the toxic relationship. And that's something that probably, I mean, well, without a doubt, it's the number one reason why guys do fail and do die. It's the number one reason why people go back out. But it's probably the most difficult to actually wrap your head around and just know, okay, well, I'm definitely going to stay out of this toxic relationship. And you talked about it right from the beginning that, it wasn't even that it was a toxic relationship. It wasn't even that she was a bad person. She's a wonderful person. She just wasn't the right person for you. And the more that you got to know yourself, the more that separation between the two of you was more and more obvious. So how do you stay out of that? How do you keep recovering and not go back?
Being fair to her. That was an act of love. That was my act of love to her, is being fair to her. You know this truth about yourself, Petros. It's time to tell her the truth. And, with years clean, 7, 8 years clean, thank God I have no experience in what you're talking about, toxic relationships, right? So it's been my experience that even with, I'm a person that works a rigorous, I am a member because I participate in my recovery process, right? I am a member. Recovery is, listen, this 12-step fellowship is no longer a drug program for me. It's a behavior program with an understanding that the drug and the drink I'll always be powerless over. That's me. That's my story, right? With years clean, I have experience in being in a romantic relationship that, and again, not talking bad about anyone, talking about my role in it, that wasn't healthy. And I continued to go back, continue to go back. The lovely and the ugly for that is God, how I understand him, used that as a conduit for me to get to the exact nature to work on some stuff with me that happened way before the drug and the drink, some emotional insecurity. And my mother told me, hey, the way we raised you, we were too hard on you. It made you doubt yourself. So being presented, because every day in recovery, every day clean, man, is an opportunity, right? Perspective. And try to let the guys know that are in our care, man, that this is a program of practical application. And that in itself has levels. For example, what I'm talking about is practical application. I'm brand new. I'm living in a recovery house. I have less than a year clean. Well, then, hey, why don't you learn how to go to meetings? Why don't you learn how not to get high or drink? Okay. 3 to 4 years clean, practical application. We're talking about spiritual principles, applying them, right? Honesty, open mindedness, willingness, integrity, fully self supporting. And our greatest principle is what? Love, right? And that's taken some years to understand because, as you well know, and I'll say this for the both of us, that it's easier, much easier for you and I to love other people. We see something in them. We want to encourage that. We want to bring that out in them. You're worth it. But it's taken 10 years, 10 years, man, for me to learn how to love myself. And I know I've heard you talk about it. It's taken you about that amount of time too, to get to this place to learn how to love yourself in a healthy way, right? Because taken to the too far to the right or too far to the left, that love can turn into, it can get a little ugly. So, um, communal living has a lot of upside for me, right? And to be honest with you, man, listen, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the communal living that I experienced on Jacob's Ladder in Columbia, Maryland, with 2.5 years clean, right? Things are different out here today. The substances that people are that are available for people to ingest, they're a lot more dangerous. I work in a field where we address substance use disorder, and the people that are coming into our care in that environment, because of what's out there, are taking a lot more time to mentally acclimate. And we have to consider that when we're taking someone from, is everyone that's leaving substance use disorder treatment ready for the type of housing that we offer? No, right? Um, but that being said, even if someone is 6 to 8 months removed, less than a year removed, are they ready for us? Because the type of structure that we're offering has a lot of freedom. And I believe too, another realm, another level of practical application is I had to learn how to appreciate and manage the freedoms that this program's given me, right? So there's just a lot of levels to that. But I understand that what my sponsor Raymond is telling me about program of practical application and perspective.
So let's do this too. Let's go ahead and define, what makes Gratitude Foundation special, what makes us different. At its core, Gratitude Foundation is structured, clean, safe, structured housing.
No, Martin. No, Martin. At its core,
hit us with it.
At its core, Gratitude Foundation are two co-founders that have lived experience of trying to kill themselves for years, but also have multiple years of recovery experience. And at Gratitude Foundation, at its core, has two co-founders that understand what it means to them to be trusted servants and to whom they are trusted servants of. We're not better than, we're not less than anyone else. We're talking about what is at the core of Martin Tippett and Petros Colla, the co-founders of Gratitude Foundation. That's what's at our core, man. And the love that we have in our hearts because of the lives and the opportunity that we've been afforded, Martin, with this understanding that one day you and I, and again, we're not better than anyone else, man, that you and I will be asked, do I know you? And what did you do, Martin and Petros, with what I gave you? And it comes with responsibility, man. So Gratitude Foundations at its core is love, right? We love what we do. We're so grateful to be given a second chance at life. When you and I have seen people just like you and I, man, that have made decisions that are no longer breathing, we understand that where there is breath, there is hope. And where there is no more breath, there is no more hope. And you and I have had to learn together on this journey with Gratitude Foundations and how to love is difficult, Marty. We've had to love people and let them go. We've had to love people and tighten up on them a little bit. We've had to love people and redirect them when you and I were, hey, Marty, hey, Petros, I don't want to have this uncomfortable conversation. But at its core, it's love, Marty, our greatest spiritual principle.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that explanation. You're so right. And we've had a ton of guys that have followed suggestions, and we've got a lot of success stories. And we've had other guys who make different choices and, aren't with us anymore. It really is a life and death struggle. And to be here on the front lines, I don't know. It's easy to take it for granted that, it is just housing, but it's not. It's so much more than that when you're really fighting for the guys that are there, when we're rooting for them, when we're trying to provide opportunities and make decisions that are, literally life and death.
Gratitude Fund. And you know what? We have another nonprofit that sees something in us, right? We've had people donate to us, and that makes us feel good, right? We're a small nonprofit, and we're careful, so it just makes me feel good about the opportunity that you and I have been provided with this understanding. And please, anyone listening or anyone that may watch this, if you or someone that struggles with substance use disorder and call Martin, call myself. My number directly is 240-626-9385. Martin and I have many resources available. We can help if the person's willing. Um, it just makes me feel good. I heard this. I think it was you that told me, because I remember you and I driving out to Nebraska, right? 19 hours in the car there and back. And, there's literature that tells us that being of service is the highest aspiration of the human heart, and how we're entrusted to do so because of what our higher power has done for us. We don't take what we do lightly, but we know that, you and I don't have the power to change anyone. That's not our job. We get that part. We just provide the opportunity for someone to come in and start, good stuff.
So Petros does a lot of service work. Petros, can you tell us, I want to get into gratitude, right? I want to get into how you use gratitude as a tool. And I know service work is a big part of that. You do a lot of speaking engagements. You help a lot of people on and off the clock. And I'm just hoping that you can kind of tell us how you use that as a tool for happiness.
Being of service.
Yeah.
So at my core, I believe I have a responsibility to be of service. The challenge is to be of service without judgment and without expectation. I understand that the teacher only shows up when the student's ready. So being of service, there's many different ways to be of service. I'm finding that out. But can I be of service humbly? Right. I don't need to, hypothetically, because I've been off all social media for over 5 years, but I don't need to be of service and be posting, hey, look at what I'm doing. So when I'm asked to participate, like I just got a phone call last week, I've asked to be on a board, a panel with Washington County Drug Court here in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we do a lot of work with local government agencies, parole and probation, day reporting center, other treatment centers that come in and ask us to speak. And for example, yesterday I picked up two people that were homeless that were ready to go into treatment. I dropped them off at treatment, and they were able to admit and, start again, get that break, get that reprieve, right? So I've had to learn to be fair, to be of service to those that have been there for me my entire life. For example, my parents aren't doing well. They're aging. Being of service to me means, mom has been in and out of the hospital, and just showing up with my sister. I don't have to have the answers. Is it emotional roller coaster for me? Yeah, for me it is, because I don't want who wants to see their parents aging like that? They're both 85, and learning how to be of service to the family. I try to make myself available for anyone that calls to that's looking for help, to help if I can. And it's the most selfish thing I can do because of how it makes me feel, right? And I believe that we have a responsibility, those of us that have some time clean, that have been given what we call, see, being of service and helping someone who's just like me. Their preference may not be mine. Their skin color may not be mine. Their story, their address may not be mine. But if you suffer from substance use disorder and co-occurring mental health, then we are the same. We are the same. And to be placed in a position by God to be the light for someone, to help them, we refer to that as a precious gift, right? And to tie it back into Gratitude Foundation, that's what you and I have been given, this precious gift to be there for other people. And sometimes being of service means just shutting up and listening. I don't have to say everything all the time to be of service.
Yeah, the girl who actually introduced me to Mike and Joni, which is how I got into the Donnelly house. I was in rehab with her,
Oh,
and
wow.
she said to me, she said, one candle can light 1,000 candles. And she told me my candle was going to light those candles. And yeah, it's true,
Good
right?
stuff.
Where
Yeah.
we, yeah, where we hold up our end of the bargain, and it is a
But
lot of responsibility. I think too that the fact that I'm tied in with all these men and I have responsibilities to them actually does help me on my worst days when I don't want to
oh yeah,
show up. When I would easily fall back into another depression, I'm responsible to more than just myself. I have that love for others that pulled me out of it.
and to go on that point, just because you're coming up on, you have 11 years. Congratulations,
Thank
Martin.
you.
Just hit 11 years yesterday, and because I have over 10 years, good point. We're not exempt. We still feel those things, but another point though, for anyone that's maybe watching this in the future, Martin and I met in treatment over 11 years ago, what I like to refer to as 28-day summer camp. So
Summer camp.
yeah, that in itself is powerful for me. So yeah,
Yeah, we've had a long ride together.
yeah, we have, man. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the other thing that I think is interesting from this interview is that you also mentioned dishes in the sink, and that has come up a number of times already on this interview series. So that still is probably the number one recommendation that we can make if you're in a sober living environment. Do your dishes,
Yeah.
because that's a big deal. And also, I kind of want to say too, like I was thinking about this the other day, how I would talk a lot about, we need to learn to free ourselves to be ourselves. And I talked about that a lot in the years past because of you and me. And that's part of what I learned sitting there on that couch is that I had to free myself to be myself. Right. I had to, because I have control over keeping myself completely closed in and walled off. I have control over how many masks I want to wear to keep people, from knowing who I really am. And that's what I learned with you is even on my worst day to just sit on the couch anyway. Right. Even on my worst day where I'm probably going to snap at you. And I've told all my sponsees that you've probably gotten the brunt of most of my anger before anybody
Like
else does.
likewise too.
And that's, to credit, like what a great friend that you've been to me over the years is that forgiveness that you've given, that grace that you've given me to be myself, right? And to make mistakes and to have those conversations and to figure out what am I feeling? Like most of the time, it's not obvious to me what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it. The other day I was sharing about that at my sponsorship family get together is like, I don't even know what I'm going through right now. And then Kabir sends me the message saying, congratulations for my clean date. I didn't even realize it that morning. And I'm like, that's when it clicked. I was like, oh, right. That 2 weeks before and the 2 weeks after the
Yeah.
anniversary, just feeling that squirreliness, right? It's like, oh, okay. That's probably what it is. And more, the more that I can let down my guard around the people that are working the same program that I am. And I think that's important. It's not just letting my guard down for anyone, but people that are practicing the same principles, the more I can find out who I really am.
And part of that too, man. Like, thank you for those beautiful words, a beautiful sentiment. I love you like a brother, man. And the same thing goes. I know there's been times you scratched your head and like, oh, this guy, right? But we always come back to the brotherhood piece. So communal living, the part that I didn't understand then, part of the feelings that I'm feeling, the frustration, or if I'm just off spiritually that day is, hey, man, you and I, you said front lines, right? We surround ourselves with newcomers. If anyone knew how to live, they wouldn't be living in a recovery home, right? If I knew how to live healthily, I wouldn't be living in a recovery home. So what comes with that, man? Everyone's like, hey, how do I open up a recovery house? I'm going to open up a recovery house. Calm down a little bit, right? I think there's a certain time frame that people need, hard-won experience. Me personally, I couldn't have done it with less than 4 years. But I understand today, why am I feeling frustrated? Why am I feeling, well, we surround ourselves with newcomers, right? And I was at a meeting the other day and we were reading out of The Journey Continues. And we were reading out of emotional and spiritual change section. Ouch. Right. And I'm paraphrasing. It talked about like, hey, I'm aware of the changes I'm going through. I understand what's happening. I just want it going like that. And that's not life, right? So I think some of the challenge at times is, you and I, we're not realistic with ourselves at times. And the reality is this. Yeah, we provide an opportunity. And it's tough running a business. We haven't talked about that part, right? It's a challenge running a business. Oh, and living my own life. So we surround ourselves with anyone that's, listen, I'll put it to you this way. When I came in, there were people that they were nice to me and they were my acquaintances, but they didn't want to get close to me right away because the one thing that was prevalent was my disease. My spirit was off. It needed some healing, right? So, and we make ourselves available for that. So there's a lot that comes with it, but with much that is given, there is much that is required, right?
Can I make this assumption too and say
Sure.
what step you're on? I actually want to say, with 10 years clean, with 11 years clean, the process hasn't stopped either. And I think that's maybe important to mention. And maybe you can tell us a little about what you're working on right now.
Sure. Currently, I'm working on, yes, good point. So I've never stopped working the steps, the traditions, or the concepts. I'm currently on step 11, and we thought through help me out here, Marty. Step 11, and step 11.
I'm terrible. I'm terrible at doing that.
You're right.
That's the first thing my sponsor does to me every time we get together to go over a step. By the way, he goes, "And what is the step?"
We sought
through prayer and meditation.
Conscious contact with God of our understanding, or something like that, right?
Praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Right. So this step, a lot of people talk about emotional maturity. I'm in this place in step 11 where I'm working on my perceptional maturity. How I talk about myself, in my 3 relationships, how I look and talk about myself with my relationship with God, with myself, with others. This perceptional maturity, it was brought to my attention to me this year that my original earthly sponsor, my mother, I'm a mama's boy. She said, you are emotionally insecure. And there were facets about how we raised you. It made you doubt yourself. And, in that moment, I understood, I had a lot of clarity. I understood why God, how I understand Him, brought me to Narcotics Anonymous. This is the work that I'm talking about, working on things that happened way before the first ingestion of anything. So I'm on step 11. I do a lot of prayer. And anyone that's listening, this part, I don't care if I offend anyone, right? So God to me is not a religion. God to me is a relationship. Religion is something I hear. Relationship is something that I feel. And there's a big difference for me. I had someone show up at the anniversary a few Thursdays ago and said, wow, Petros, I really felt God in that meeting. My parents ask me all the time, hey, you go to church? Every time I'm in a meeting, right? Because I get to see miracles like myself, like you. And today with over 10 years clean, the step work brings you awareness. And I want to quickly define recovery for anyone that's curious. Or it says in Narcotics Anonymous literature, it's very, very clear. Recovery begins when I learn to apply the spiritual principles contained in the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. And in order for recovery to take place, there must be a profound spiritual and emotional change, right? The profound spiritual and emotional change is not always rainbows, it's not always butterflies, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it hurts. And sometimes it can be heartbreaking. But if I just stay the course, that's why this is a simple program. It gets complicated because of me and my thinking. I get in the way all the time. And the only thing that I've gotten right in 10 years, the only thing, I just haven't picked up the drug or the drink, but I have used clean. What I mean by that is I have lived in fear for an extended period of time. I've lived in low self-esteem. I've lived in anxiety. I've lived in depression. I've taken up residence and literally lived there. So the steps help me right now. That's one part. The we part is having some, to me, this is a precious gift. Having someone like you, Martin, that God has put in my life. I trust you and Kabir and Raymond with everything, which isn't a lot, right? But I trust you with everything that I have, in particular, everything on the inside. And I'm able to call people like you because I can't see it. I'm in the picture. You can. You're outside the frame. Step work is still very much the practical application of the steps is still a very much big part of my life.
Awesome.
So hopefully we covered. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for all your insight today. Petros does help people get into treatment in and around the Maryland area. I'll be, with his permission, putting his contact information in the description for the video. Gratitude Foundation, we're just a small nonprofit. We could certainly use support and even just your attention. If you subscribe to this video or you share it with somebody who you think might find it interesting, that's a big help to us. We definitely want to get the word out there that there are people that are being successful and having good experiences in sober living environments. And in fact, I'm a big proponent. I believe it's a more natural way to live is in and around other people. So yeah, don't fake it till you make it. See it until you be it. Right? Find some people that are doing the stuff.
Notice the sign.
Recovery is not a given. It's a choice.
It's not. It's a daily choice. It's a daily choice. So anyone that's listening, if you can help, please help. Share our message. And really what this is two men that made decisions, right? We lost the ability to tell people that we were hurting, that we don't understand. And we tried to kill ourselves one day at a time for many years. And the reason why this is so important to us because we were given a reprieve, right? And Martin has been coming back to life for over 11 years. I've been coming back to life for over 10 years. We didn't speak, smell, or look like this over 11 years ago, and we are not better than or less than. So if you're out there and you're struggling and you're watching this, the same opportunity can be afforded yourself, right? We're not some unique cases, because I'll say this and I'll shut up, right? Misery loves company, but so does recovery. The disease of addiction wants my life, but so does God, how I understand him. So there's always the opposite side of that, right? So, Marty, thank you. I love you. Have a good day, buddy.
Thanks, Petros. Talk to you soon. All the opinions expressed here are that of our own.
Yes.
We encourage you to check out 12-step programs, but we don't represent those. What is it that you always say, Petros? We're just a trusted servant. We don't run shit.
We don't run shit.
Thanks, everybody. See you, Petros.
See you, man.